Good morning. Please be seated. Members of the class of 2024, parents, family members, friends, faculty, and staff, I welcome you to this baccalaureate service and to the series of events that culminates tomorrow morning with our commencement ceremony. After tomorrow, you seniors will be graduates of Washington and Lee University. It's a distinction you'll carry with you for the rest of your lives that I know will be ones of consequence, full of accomplishments that will bring further distinction to you and to your alma mater. These are a happy few days, though also strange. They're full of powerful and mixed emotions. They intersperse moments of high formality, such as our gathering here this morning, with precious moments of informality shared with your family and closest friends. There's inevitably sadness in your leave takings, and you wouldn't be human if you didn't feel at least some anxiety as you face a future that is full of promise but necessarily uncertain. But let this period also be overflowing with joy and gratification that comes with knowing that you have done well. You've grown as individuals and become forever a member of a very special extended community. There's an established rhythm to this series of events at Washington and Lee. Tomorrow is a time of celebration. Today is one of reflection and giving thanks. Each of you knows you would not be here today if it weren't for the support of family and friends, without the guidance and encouragement of your faculty, without the support of the staff, without the generations of alumni who have come before you and given their gifts so that you might benefit from the same experience that so profoundly shaped their lives. And so we gather here today for this baccalaureate service. It arises from religious traditions of the university, which was founded by disciplined, thrifty, strong-willed Scots-Irish Presbyterians. They came to this valley in search of freedom from religious constraint and with a desire to found a community of hardworking individuals. From that disposition, they created this place of learning that has always been non-sectarian and non-denominational. The origins of this day, this ceremony, go back to the 18th century. And as it was then, it remains a time for us to reflect on how an education shapes the life of a caring individual. Your time here has taught you that the fruits of your education, to share the fruits of your education, and to take your life in a direction of service, no matter your career, and to be mindful of ideals that transcend the self. To help us with that theme, I now call upon the university singers under the direction of Shane Lynch, who will sing The Road Home. Thank you, university singers. We're privileged this morning to hear from the recipient of the Algernon Sydney Sullivan Award, who was selected by the faculty. One of the highest awards at the university, Washington and Lee presents the Algernon Sydney Sullivan Medallion to an undergraduate senior who exhibits Sullivan's qualities by excelling, quote, in high ideals of living, in fine spiritual qualities, and in generous and disinterested service to others. When the institution makes the student award, it appoints the recipient as its representative to bear its standard before the world. Earlier today, I had the pleasure of presenting this year's Sullivan Medallion to Catherine Katie Yurechko. Katie from Havre de Grace, Maryland, is a computer science and philosophy double major and a poverty and human capability studies minor who will continue her studies next year at Oxford University, pursuing a master's degree in social science of the internet as Washington and Lee's first ever Marshall Scholar. During her 4 years at W&L, Katie has uplifted and inspired others on campus and in the local community. As a Bonner Scholar, Katie devoted nearly 1,800 hours to serving others. She was also president of the Neighbors Service League, co-president of the Volunteer Venture Program, vice president of Campus Kitchen, and a student representative on the Shepherd Poverty Studies Advisory Board. She created and ran the Tech Equity Educational Series for the Neighbors Service League and designed coding activities for young girls in Rockbridge County as a co-chair for women in technology and science. You may also have seen her at the Fitness Center, where she served as the inaugural meditation instructor for the group exercise program. Katie's passion for justice has also informed her academic and intellectual pursuits. At Carnegie Mellon's University's Media Interaction and Technology Lab during the summer of 2022, she investigated algospeak, an emerging phenomenon in which social media creators attempt to outmaneuver content moderation algorithms. Since then, Katie's contributed her voice to the field emerging at the intersection of technology and social justice, publishing 2 research papers and presenting at numerous national and international venues, including Google, where she's an alumna of their computer science research mentorship program. She's now an intern with the University of Washington's Social Futures Lab, working to develop an interactive machine learning tool to help address online harassment. In the spring of 2023, Katie was one of 5 W&L juniors to be inducted into both Phi Beta Kappa, the Academic Honor Society, and Omicron Delta Kappa, the Leadership Honor Society. She was also inducted into Phi Sigma Tau, the International Philosophy Honor Society, and was a finalist for both the Rhodes Scholarship and the Truman Scholarship. In 2024, she was named the Omicron Delta Kappa National Leader of the Year in Academics and Research. At Oxford, Katie will apply her considerable intellect and energy in the service of her passion for eradicating algorithmic injustice from social media and making technology a stronger mechanism for building and sustaining just communities. I now call upon Katie to address her classmates and help us celebrate this occasion.
Good morning, everyone. I'm incredibly honored to be here with you all today. When tasked with selecting a reading that reflects who we are as a class, I initially found myself turning to the world's most popular virtual know-it-all, Google, searching for poems and excerpts about identity, community, and life in general. It occurred to me that our class, having begun college in the midst of the pandemic and growing through all of its uncertainties, is always searching in a much more substantive sense than Google searching could ever facilitate. So, closing my lit screen, I cracked open a copy of Henry David Thoreau's Walden, which will serve as our anchor for reflecting on our Washington and Lee education throughout these next few moments together. In 1845, American poet Ellery Channing told Thoreau, "Build yourself a hut, and there begin the grand process of devouring yourself alive." Thoreau then moved to a small home that he built in a forest around Walden Pond. He famously wrote, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived." Just over 4 years ago, our class set off on a journey similar to Thoreau's. We chose to attend W&L, which came to offer us an education that plunged us into the depths of the Thoreauian woods, the dense foliage of possible beliefs, perspectives, and values from which each of us would mold our own basis for meaning in our lives. But instead of seeking solitude as Thoreau did, we emerged from the solitude of the end of our high school years in search of opportunities to live deliberately. Throughout our time at WNL, we asked ourselves age-old questions. Who am I? What do I stand for? And how many swipes do I have left? And found these ancient curiosities colored by the perils and possibilities of the 21st century. In an increasingly digitized world, WNL showed us the irreplaceable value of finding and creating meaning and community with others, whether it be through formal discussions in class or casual conversations with the mentors and friends who have helped shape us into who we are becoming. Like Thoreau, whose mother famously did his laundry throughout his time in the woods, WNL showed us the immense value of seeking support from others while experiencing young adulthood's growing pains. Not only did we hopefully learn to do our own laundry over these past few years, we also learned how to ask hard questions and move forward without having all of the answers, to take the seismic risk of navigating the world with an ever-developing compass, and in that chaos, grounding ourselves in what we trust truly matters. Inspired by his time in the woods, Thoreau wrote the following passage: "We must learn to reawaken and keep ourselves awake, not by mechanical aids, but by an infinite expectation of the dawn, which does not forsake us, even in our soundest sleep. I know of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of man to elevate his life by a conscious endeavor. It is something to be able to paint a particular picture or to carve a statue, and so to make a few objects beautiful. But it is far more glorious to carve and paint the very atmosphere and medium through which we look, which morally we can do, to affect the quality of the day. That is the highest of arts." Now let us use the tools we acquired from our liberal arts education to unpack this passage together. Thoreau first says, "We must learn to reawaken and keep ourselves awake." Now, if Thoreau were a college student, he might have been referring to the magic of coffee as a study aid or survival tactic. But almost as if he anticipated our thoughts, he clarifies that we must keep ourselves awake not by mechanical aids, but by an infinite expectation of the dawn. Here today, in the dusk of our college experiences, Thoreau implores us not only to look back at the dawn, the beginning of our time at WNL, but to infinitely expect the first appearance of light in the sky each and every morning for the rest of our lives. To hold this hope for tomorrow such that it does not forsake us even in our soundest sleep is a bold request, but it is surely one that we can honor. Why? Thoreau goes on to explain that he knows of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of man to elevate his life by a conscious endeavor. Thoreau makes clear that we are each a critical part of creating hope for tomorrow. In a world of uncertainty, each of us encourages those around us to believe in the dawn, not to take tomorrow for granted, but to expect it always because of the light that we see in others and within ourselves. By participating in conscious endeavors, not idly scrolling through life's content, but actively and intentionally shaping it, we actualize what Thoreau means to live deliberately. Finally, what does living deliberately tangibly mean for us? Well, remember that Thoreau writes how it is one thing to be able to make a few objects beautiful, but it is far more glorious to carve and paint the very atmosphere and medium through which we look. Tomorrow, we will each receive our diploma, the tangible what that signifies our accomplishment of graduating from WNL. We will continue to answer questions like, what was your major and what's next? But Thoreau reminds us never to forsake the how behind the what, the process by which we go about shaping how we view and engage with the world. Knowing the resilience of our class, I trust that we each have the strength to evaluate and consciously determine for ourselves our own distinctive hows in life. Whenever we fall into mechanical rhythms of chasing and checking boxes, we can and will affect the quality of the day by being bold enough to be fully in it, headphones off, screens unlit, so that we can take note of how we are becoming whom we will eventually be. As we take the next step in our idiosyncratic forest of beliefs, perspectives, and values, may we forever rekindle the lessons of our W&L education through Thoreau's words. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. I now have the honor of introducing our baccalaureate speaker, Kirsten Barnett. Kirsten Barnett, class of 2005, is the president of the New York Jobs CEO Council, a coalition of CEOs of New York's largest employers, including Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan, Sundar Pichai at Google, and Larry Fink at BlackRock. Founded in 2020, the Jobs Council serves as New York City's primary education and workforce development intermediary, building public-private partnerships to scale sustainable, market-driven solutions that benefit both local job seekers and employers and drive inclusive economic growth. The Job Council is on a mission to put 100,000 underserved New Yorkers into career ladder jobs by 2030. In the first 3 years, these 30 employers have successfully hired 40,000 low-income New Yorkers into family-sustaining careers at their own companies. It's a testament to what the business community can achieve when it's collectively committed to advancing a mission. Democratizing access to career opportunities has been a consistent theme throughout Kirsten's career. Before joining the Jobs Council, Kirsten spent 15 years at Bloomberg, the leading provider of financial news, data, and analytics. As the global head of Bloomberg's Gender Equality Index, Kirsten's team brought unprecedented transparency to workforce data at public companies, creating a social reporting framework for the investment community and launching a sector-neutral index that tracks the financial performance of the world's most inclusive companies. Index inclusion has become the gold standard for issuers and investors, and the outperformance of the index has fortified the business case for diversity. In her previous role as the Deputy Chief of Staff to Bloomberg's Chairman and CEO, Kirsten collaborated with senior leadership on key business and internal initiatives, corporate communications, and strategic partnerships. She also gained significant international experience working with colleagues and clients in more than 40 countries. While at Bloomberg, Kirsten also founded the 30% Club, a group of influential CEOs, including Warren Buffett, who are diversifying US boardrooms. When the 30% Club launched, fewer than 17% of S&P 500 board seats were held by women. Today, that number is at 34% and climbing. Skilled at publicly advancing a mission, Kirsten has spoken at Fortune 500 companies and on global stages, including Davos and the New Economy Forum. She was the host of Bloomberg's on-camera interview series, Invested in Equality, where she interviewed inclusive leaders such as Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon and Coca-Cola CEO James Quincy. Kirsten sits on the board of State Business Executives, CareerWise USA, and the investment committee of Project Sunshine, which is a nonprofit organization bringing joy to more than 150,000 pediatric patients around the world. She's a member of the Women's Forum of New York and a former strategy officer to the World Economic Forum. Kirsten graduated from Washington Lee in 2005. She majored in business administration and currently serves on the Williams School Board of Advisors. She received a Distinguished Young Alumna Award in 2015, recognizing her service to and her support for both the university and her community. Kirsten lives in New York City with her husband and her 2 children, and we're pleased to have her husband and son with her today. Please join me now in welcoming Kirsten Solander Barnett back to her alma mater.
Thank you, President Dudley. And thank you, Class of 2024, for having me today. When I was 18 and first got my acceptance letter from W&L, my parents taped it to the fridge for 5-6 months. And so when I received President Dudley's invitation to be your baccalaureate speaker, I accepted with pleasure first, and then folded it up and put it in the mail to my parents with a note from their 41-year-old daughter that said, "Put it on the fridge." So I also want to thank all the parents and families here for your support that got us all here. So graduates, let's all give them a round of applause. "19 years ago, I sat in one of these seats. It was like today, a beautiful day outside the chapel, and thoughtful words were said, hard-earned advice dispensed, and for the life of me, I could not tell you one word of it. I was much more preoccupied with whether my boyfriend and I were going to make it long distance from Charlotte to New York. And spoiler alert, it's a long drive. I remember the following day, however, vividly, commencement. It rained, and so we were forced into VMI's gym, packing into rows that were designed to hold half of us. And our commencement speaker was none other than the author Tom Wolfe in his signature crisp white linen suit. Now, for those too young to remember, Tom was a brilliant author and social critic, a proud W&L alum, and a stylish eccentric, to say the least. Within the first 5 minutes of his speech, we had covered, among other things, Paris Hilton's sex tape and Monica Lewinsky. We found it hilarious, our parents a little less so, and I'm pretty sure that that was the first and last time anyone other than the president has done the commencement speech at W&L. Tom was known for being attuned to the ways in which American society changes. He was a master at capturing our country's cultural zeitgeist at a specific point in time. And I can't help but wonder, standing here now, what would Tom think? I have been fascinated by your class ever since I watched the creative lengths you went to 4 years ago to celebrate your high school graduations in the midst of a global pandemic. I can only imagine how disappointing and disorienting it must have been to be trapped inside, missing out on milestones like graduation and prom that are part of coming of age in America. Given the number of uncertainties swirling around, I wouldn't be surprised if you entered college feeling less prepared than previous classes. But I can tell you now, you are most certainly more prepared to leave this school than you were because of that experience. That experience built skills and competencies that will be critical to navigating the world of work. You will be more successful in your careers because of it. I'll share a story from my time at Bloomberg. In March of 2011, the fourth most powerful earthquake hit off the coast of Japan, triggering a tsunami, which triggered the disablement of a nuclear power plant on the coast. The meltdown caused explosions that leaked radioactive gas into the air, and 83,000 people in the surrounding area had to be evacuated. Your parents will remember that there were a couple days where the world held its breath. Would the situation be controlled from there, or was Japan on the brink of something much worse? I was in Dubai with Bloomberg CEO Peter Grauer at the time when the earthquake struck. We cut our trip short, we got on the plane home, and we spent the flight on calls with Bloomberg's management team discussing the various options we had for different scenarios. In the scenario where the toxic impact could reach Tokyo, it wouldn't be safe for our 600 employees. This is what those conversations looked like. How do you prepare to evacuate 600 employees and their families' independence? Someone look into, can we charter commercial planes to have on standby? Okay, but where would they go? Singapore, Hong Kong? Where will they stay? For how long? How much will it cost? Does it even matter? I'll never forget Peter putting down the phone and turning and looking at me very solemnly and saying, there is no playbook for this. Now, luckily, we never ended up needing those planes. But I share this story because there is no playbook for a career. I think there was a time when there were playbooks, at a time when careers were more linear. But the pace at which the world, and as a consequence, the world of work, is rapidly changing is not slowing down. The question, what do you want to be when you grow up, is antiquated. If you pointed out a senior job at Bloomberg today and said, I want that job in 10 years, I will tell you that job won't exist in 2 years. In 2 years, that will be 10 jobs, or it'll be 1/10 of a job, but it won't be there. You all know how to succeed without a playbook because you've done it. You had no choice. You're comfortable navigating the gray. When you first stepped foot on campus freshman year, you were acutely aware that you were only one variant away from going back home, or one positive test from missing homecoming weekend. I, on the other hand, started my freshman year here with all the false sense of security that comes with seeing the world in black and white. And then 2 weeks later, I bounced into the co-op for some coffee, looked up at a television screen, and saw 2 planes crashing into the Twin Towers in New York City. All of that stability was shattered. I still have a copy of the email that WNL's president sent to all the students and faculty at the end of that day. And at the end of it, it said, "The world in which we now live is different from the one we awoke to this morning." The world changed, and then you were born. Most of you were born in the 12 months after that day. This is the only world you know. I think in some ways you've always been awake to the fact that forces much larger than us can affect your life in a major way, that everything you know can change in a minute. And then, because of the pandemic, you entered adult life with a better sense of how closely connected the world is than previous generations have understood. You literally experienced the consequences of that closeness in a way that others didn't. You are adaptable, you are resourceful, you are tenacious. You don't need a playbook to succeed. So throw that out the window. Although you might want to hold on to your mask. You may need that again. I can tell you that had I followed a playbook, I wouldn't be here today. I focused on the things I could control, what I call being a great athlete in the professional sense. These are the most valuable players any company has. You can play them on any field, anytime. I have to brag for a moment. In my current role as president of the New York nonprofit, I have a dream board of directors. CEOs of IBM, Amazon, McKinsey, Google, Ralph Lauren. In fact, my first board meeting of 2024 is at 9 a.m. tomorrow, and that is in no way adding to the pressure that I feel today. When I got the call asking if I was interested in throwing my hat in the ring for this job, it wasn't because I have experience working at a nonprofit. I didn't. It wasn't because of my workforce development or education experience. I didn't have that either. So why on earth would these CEOs be interested in me? It's because the board was looking for a great athlete. And I had built a portfolio of skills that were transferable to this other playing field. Operating experience at a large company, a record of executing against a vision, and incubating and scaling projects. I built and led diverse teams. My last interview for this job was with Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan and chair of this board, or my board. And no big deal, just this interview with the CEO of the largest bank in the world. When I was getting dressed for that interview, I said to my husband, hey, even if I don't get this job, at least I'll have had 45 minutes with Jamie Dimon. I finished my interview, and Jamie walked me to the elevator bank. It was like a scene out of a movie. He shook my hand, and the elevator doors started closing. And as they did, he said, if I don't hire you for this job, I'm going to hire you for something else. Now, I first interpreted that the way you might a first date. If at the end of the first date, the guy said, if I don't call you for a second date, I'm sure I've got a friend. But Jamie later explained to me that he meant it quite literally, which is why I am putting this importance on being a great athlete. I will also add that the next day, I was offered the job, and I said to my husband, Alex, who's here, so it's a nonprofit, and it pays a little less than Bloomberg. And he said, well, what was the other job? Can we see behind door number 2? So So how do you become great professional athletes? I'm going to offer a few rules. Rule number 1, stay in shape, stretch your muscles, and build new ones. Here's a statement that might get me into trouble today. Companies care more about your skills than your degrees. Now, in 6 months, my understanding is 95% of you will either be enrolled in higher ed or have job or employed. And that statistic is bananas, by the way, compared to other colleges. So yes, your degree is getting you that first job. But from here on out, the opportunities you're given are going to be as a result of your portfolio of skills, not your resume. And this includes all the skills you've learned in the classroom, but it also includes skills you've learned outside of the classroom. It includes muscles you've built out of discomfort. When I first got to W&L, I knew no one on campus, literally. I was from a tiny but mighty state up north, Rhode Island, and I was the only Rhode Islander at W&L. I had to learn to introduce myself to people, to build relationships from scratch. During homecoming freshman year, I found myself sitting at a dinner with a date I barely knew, at a fraternity I hadn't been to, having to make small talk with his friends, their girlfriends, even the house mom. It was like everyone was speaking a different language. Some people are born with social skills. I was not one of them. So I built the skills I needed to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. I observed, I learned how to ask people questions, how to say nice to see you if I couldn't remember if I'd met them before. And then I continued to refine those skills. My first trip to New York City was for a W&L classmate's birthday party during college. It was a cocktail party at a fancy New York apartment on Park Avenue. And the only cocktail parties I'd been before that were in the Fidel basement. Very different. So when a server came up to me and asked what I'd like to drink, I said, Merlot? Because I'd seen my dad order it at a restaurant. The server looked at me funny and said, I'll see if we have that. And I realized I'd said the wrong thing. So I watched what others said and learned how to say, red wine, please. Fast forward to 10 years later, I found myself at Bloomberg traveling to 20, 30 countries a year, doing client dinners in Sao Paulo, Singapore, Lagos, Paris, having to make small talk with clients that now literally spoke a different language. I didn't order Merlot. On one of my Bloomberg annual performance reviews, under strengths, it said, you can put Kirsten in any room. Life experience comes in many, many ways. Focus on building a valuable portfolio of skills and be intentional about the ones that don't come as naturally. Put yourself in situations outside your comfort zone that will pay off later. Rule number 2, be ready for opportunity. Every growth position I've had has been a result of someone taking a chance on me. You don't know when the coach will put you in, but you can be in your uniform, ready to play and ready to take advantage of that opportunity when it comes. I first learned the word FaceTime here at W&L my freshman year, when my Gramley hallmates came up to me and said, we have to go put in FaceTime with the upper class girls. It's almost rush. Little did I know at the time that I was building the core competency that would become the bedrock of my career, building relationships. I've learned in this job that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. So much of success depends on the opportunities you have access to and take. And so at a time when talent is ubiquitous, creating those opportunities is critical, and relationships are what will yield those opportunities. FaceTime is a big contributor to building and cultivating relationships. It can be hard to spot an opportunity from behind a screen. It can also be hard for an opportunity to spot you. I'll share another story. I was in London on a work trip with Bloomberg in my late 20s. It was a Friday, and my boss, our CEO, had already gone home. I remember looking at the hotel closet thinking, I don't feel like putting on another outfit and going to the office. Maybe I'll just wear jeans and then I don't have to change at the airport. Or maybe I'll just work from the hotel until my flight. But I decided to put on the last clean dress I had, my uniform, if you will, and go into the office. Bloomberg's head of public affairs, Kevin Sheehy, was also in town that day, sitting in the London office near me. His assistant reminded him he had an important meeting. He got up to go, then turned around, stopped, and looked at a pretty much otherwise empty office on a Friday afternoon and said, "Hey, Kirsten, want to go meet the mayor of London?" Had I not put on the dress, had I not come into the office, I would never have known that was an opportunity that I missed. I would have flown home feeling good about myself. I'd accomplished what I had set out to accomplish that week. But had I not put on the dress, had I not come to the office, I can tell you I would not have been the following summer, sitting front row at the London Olympics, having a beer with Kevin Sheehy. That meeting opened the door to new and valuable experiences. It strengthened my relationship with Kevin and his team. And I got to meet Boris Johnson, the future Prime Minister of England. All because Kevin turned around and saw a player dressed in her uniform, ready to be put in the game. So put in the face time. Be there on those Friday afternoons when your CEO is walking around with time to kill. These relationships will be responsible for the winning plays of your career. Otherwise, you'll never know the opportunities you're missing. My last rule, love the game. I love going to work every day. When the clock strikes 6 p.m., I wish it was 3 p.m. Now, there's a very good chance you're not going to feel that way this year. It's your rookie year. And to keep up the sports references, there will be times in your career that you are hurt or injured, and that's normal. But what I want to impress upon you is that there is a difference between living to work and working to live. I live to work. I love my job. I also live for my friends. My Kappa sorority sister sat with me Sunday night and practiced this speech with me. She also got a big kick out of the sports references because, unlike Katie, I did not spend a lot of time in the gym when I was here. I also, most of all, live for my family. 2 of them here today, my husband Alex and my son George, my 7-year-old son, who, when we were at dinner Monday night, one of the families in the audience came up to him and said, "That kid's gonna be a W&L legend." So he now has his heart set on being class of 2039. I think it's because we forgot to get him a haircut, by the way. I live for many things. It is not a zero-sum game. You all have too much going for you to get up and go to work only to pay your bills, your student loans, or your next bar tab. Yes, you have to do those things. But people have invested in you, and you have invested in yourself. Give yourself space to find the game you love. My first job was at Ogilvy and Mather, an advertising firm that recruited from campus. I worked there 7 months, and every day, everything about it felt like organ rejection. I was miserable. I questioned whether this was just the post-college electric shock that comes with not living on Windfall Hill and going to parties every day. Maybe I just didn't like to work. I took a risk and took a different job. It was a lower title, but I felt it was flush with opportunity as an assistant at Bloomberg. I left Bloomberg 15 years later as the youngest direct report to their management committee. Turns out I do like to work. I wrap this up. I want you to remember the rules of being a great professional athlete. Work lots of different muscles. Build that portfolio of skills. Wear your uniform and show up. It's more important than you think. And love the game. So go live in the gray. Go do the great things that you, of all classes, were born to do. I look forward to cheering you on from the sidelines.
Thank you, Kirsten, for coming back to W&L and sharing that exceptionally wise advice with the class of 2024. We will now, once again, hear from the university singers. Thank you to the University Singers and their director, Shane Lynch, for their contributions to our ceremony this morning. Their work is not quite done. In just a moment, they'll lead us in the W&L hymn. Before they do, let me wish the class of 2024 an enjoyable 24 hours, your last as students at Washington and Lee. Let these hours be among the most meaningful of your time together. And now, would everyone please rise for the W&L hymn?
In the shadows of white columns, we stop to hear the chimes. Footsteps on which we linger, slowly yield to time. But when we doubt our future's course, our honor sets us free. Our timeless trust in our alma mater, Washington and we. As the bells ring out the hour and echo through the halls, we sense in this brief moment the strength within these walls. But when we doubt our future's course, our honor sets us free. Our timeless trust in our alma mater, Washington and we.
Thank you. I'd like to invite everyone to join us for lunch on Cannon Green, and afterwards, if you wish, at the reception at Lee House. We will reconvene here on the colonnade tomorrow at 10 a.m. for commencement. We are now adjourned. Thank you.